New rainbow shirt. Do 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 do. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I am doing my late June wrap up. So everything that I read after my dog sitting vlog earlier this month. I got my earrings, I got my pin, I got my shirt. I also got another shirt this Pride month that is a asexual flag dragon, which you will see at some point in a video. I got both that and this one from Etsy, so I will try to find my receipts and link the shops below. All of the books I'm going to talk about today are Pride Month themed. I did also read some other books. I reread, I'm continuing to reread that police procedural futuristic series, but I've told you guys about that quite a bit, so I'm just going to talk about these other ones. The first one was Sasha Masha, and I am loving all of the covers of the books I'm going to show you today, how colorful they are. They were very good for making my colorful rainbow book stacks for Instagram. This is about a 17-year-old boy, I think, who is trying to figure out his gender. Uses a mix of he, him, and she, her pronouns through the book, and it's all about Sasha Masha, who has another name that they were given at birth that I can't remember right now. Them figuring out their gender and how to express it, and their parents are not terribly forward-thinking, and their school is not either. They have one queer friend who moves away, and so it's about finding a new queer community, and it's a lot about finding a new queer community and how much a community helps one figure oneself out, and gives you words to talk about your experiences and gives you a safe place to make you feel like you are not alone, and also like you don't have to fit into any type of box because everybody is different and you're like these people in some ways and different in some ways, and you can use a name to describe what's going on with you, but you don't have to. And that was really nice. It's only 200 and some pages. I personally felt like some plot threads or character threads were introduced that were then left hanging at the end of the book. Like, I can have romance in a book without the main character ending up with someone, but in this case there were multiple relationships where we didn't really get a resolution. They were kind of just introduced and then dropped. The purpose of the book is very much just this gender exploration, so if you keep your mind on that and don't focus on all the other elements that are going on with the characters, that's the part that will get resolved mostly by the end. For what it was, I think it was a really well done book. Then we have The Black Flamingo, which I have heard about for a long time and I've just finally gotten to it. I specifically got to it for the extra round of the Blackathon, that is the Queer Blackathon that happens on Juneteenth, and read this over the 2 days of the readathon. And it is a novel in verse, so it looks like that. And I'd forgotten until I started it that it was a novel in verse, although I had heard that before. And it is all about this young gay man finding drag and exploring somewhat his sexuality and figuring out his sexuality and how to express that and deal with the prejudices against that, and finding himself a lot through drag and being able to express himself in ways that are traditionally considered feminine. And it talks about how in his childhood that was not allowed and how freeing it was to be able to do it when he grew up. It's a big chunky book, but that's because it's in verse. It doesn't take long at all to read. It took me the 2 days and I wasn't like feverishly reading it for 2 days. I really liked the different queer communities that he brushed up against and was included in sometimes, and how queer communities can still be exclusionary to certain types of queer people, and how straight people can be okay with some queer people but not others, and how there's racism in the queer community. And also I learned a lot about drag performances and how like you make a character that's separate from yourself, and so it's an expression of yourself, but in some ways different. It's not necessarily how you would want to express yourself all the time, even if it was socially acceptable. It's not just you, it's your persona that you want to create to give a certain message or idea or feeling with your performance. And so that was really interesting. Then we have Full Disclosure, which is another not all that long book. It's just barely 300 pages, but it is about a bisexual teenager, I think she's 17, who was born with AIDS because her mother had it, and it can be passed from mother to child in the womb. She was then adopted by 2 gay men. She is black and one of her parents is black, the other is Latinx, and it is about keeping the secret of being HIV positive, because if the secret gets out when you are a high schooler especially, it's very, very bad. The bullying is very bad. The parents of other kids will be very bad, not even just other kids. Teachers can be, everybody. And we know that this happened at her previous school, and so now we're going along with her as she tries to keep it from happening at her next school, when she finds threatening notes in her locker saying that someone knows she has HIV and will tell the school if she doesn't stay away from the boy she likes, who it seems likes her back. This book talks about the intersections of race, sexuality, gender, and having HIV. I really like the main character, and I really liked her little friend group and her family. Her dads are really sweet, and there's this whole part of the story that is the making of the school play for that semester, I believe, because our main character is a theater nerd, and is, I believe, directing this semester's play. And so it's about the struggles of directing when people don't like to take directions because they're arrogant teenagers, and about working as a team to make everything come out right, and working with teachers when you're a student who has authority but not too much authority, because there are teachers who are invested in this too and are like horning in on your territory, or a little over possessive of the school play. It was just a really enjoyable time. I've been really feeling in a contemporary mood lately, and reading these books for Pride really sort of bridged me from reading contemporaries into reading fantasy again, because I started reading a couple of books, Lumberjanes and Phoenix Extravagant, and now I'm actually feeling like getting back into fantasy and sci-fi, so I'm really happy about that because those are my favorite genres. So first of all, Lumberjanes. This is the second volume because the first volume hasn't come from my library yet, but I read it anyway, and this is a girls' camp that has a bunch of magical stuff going on around it, and is quite odd. I like the illustration style. It's not my favorite, but I like how it expresses very well the mood of the comics. So we've got our little group of friends that I assume we were introduced to more thoroughly in the first volume. But I kind of get the idea. I really like all of them. Like, the one that I kind of feel the least attached to is the one who seems to be the main character, which is this one over here. They just don't, she doesn't seem to have that much of a personality that I could find. Probably that personality was introduced more in the first books, and now they're like focusing more on the other characters maybe. They have magical adventures, and they also have adventures playing games like you would at a regular Girl Scout camp, like Capture the Flag. And they do make friendship bracelets and stuff, and then they deal with Greek gods on the loose, and mind-controlled people, and magic dinosaurs. So it's a really wacky wacky thing. I really like the variety of different young women, and how none of them seem to be devalued or more valued based on where they fall on the more feminine expression versus more masculine expression. And at least two of the girls like each other, so that's where the LGBTQ plus comes in, and it probably comes in more than that, but I've only read this one volume. Yeah, it's a fun adventure story, and it's quite silly, but in a really fun way, so I liked it a lot. Then we have Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon Ha Lee, which I have been anticipating reading for a really long time. Finally got to it, and this was a bit of a weird ride. Like, I've only read 2 other books by Yoon Ha Lee, but I really like them, and one was a middle grade and one was adult, so they were very different from each other. This one, even though they use the F words a number of times, feels more like written more in the middle grade sort of style. And one of the things that I mean by that is that in Machineries of Empire, the adult series, the world building is intense and you get to see a lot of it, and it starts to make sense together and makes a lot more sense together as you read the next books, from what I've heard. And the characters are like super complex, but ultimately all have really well-established reasons for doing what they're doing, even if their logic isn't terribly sound. And in that one, you're very much thrown into it, and the characters all understand how the world works already, so they're not going to explain it to you. Whereas in this one, the main character is just starting to figure out how the magic world they've been thrown into works. They've only been much exposed to the non-magical world and the non-scientific world. And usually an author would use that opportunity as the main character is learning to have the reader learn along with them and have everything be explained to them as it's explained to the main character. But Yoon Ha Lee didn't do that in here. It was just like kind of stated that the main character learned this, and then didn't go into any specifics of how it actually worked, and you're just supposed to take the author's word for it, or take the main character's word for that this is how it works and that what they're doing makes sense. So what I would have really liked more is to have the world building shown a lot more. It's titled Phoenix Extravagant, and there's a substance called Phoenix Extravagant, but I don't understand what the significance of Phoenix Extravagant is or where it comes from. Because it's something that's made, and I don't get how it's made, and I thought I was paying pretty good attention. And like, it'd be normal if the main character knew what it was and didn't explain it to me, but the main character had to learn in the book what it was, and still didn't explain as they were learning. And so now I kind of know what Phoenix Extravagant is used for, but I don't get why it's the title of the book. And usually when you name drop the title of a book, it is very obvious why that's the title. Like, I know why 9 Fox Gambit is the title of 9 Fox Gambit, and why Machineries of Empire, the series name, is what it is. And the other book is called Dragon Pearl, and that's obvious. Why is this called this? Especially as someone who's very attached to phoenixes, I want to know what the book has to do with phoenixes. But anyway, besides the title and the mysterious world building, I really like this book. It took me a bit to get used to the main character being a knucklehead, but the secondary character who's paired with them, one of the secondary characters, there's kind of a triad that we get with that I like a lot, is very badass and strategic and the opposite of a knucklehead, and I like the whole opposites working together thing. It's usually, in my experience in a book, the main character is the smart one and the knucklehead is the sidekick. So it was interesting to see the story from the knucklehead's point of view. They make bad decisions and they don't stop to think, and they're just kind of incompetent at everything except painting. Which, yes, could be a depiction of an autistic person with a special interest who is bad at everything else. Yoon Ha Lee is autistic, but still not your usual protagonist material. But once I figured out the relationship that this character had with these other characters, I was like, okay, I can deal with this. And I have a new book crush on one of the secondary characters who is amazing. And the pictured dragon, mechanical dragon, who is a automata, which in my understanding of the couple of times I've read about automata, they're kind of like a cross between a golem and a android, where a golem is given life entirely by magic and is basically a hodgepodge of stuff that would not be able to move around by itself or function in any way if it didn't have magic, whereas an android is entirely scientific and mechanical, and any sentience and life that it has been programmed into it like a computer, whereas an automata is usually mechanically functional but is given life and sentience by magic. So we have a magically sentient mechanical dragon. Who is best character? I love their character. Actually kind of reminds me of Temeraire, and just generally magic dragon. I like books with magic dragons, and the story is really good. I was constantly confused at where the story was going, but I didn't particularly mind it. I was just like, okay, what are we gonna do now? Oh, we're doing this now. Oh, we're doing this now. Sure. Like, it made sense with what had happened so far, but it couldn't be predicted based on what had happened so far, from my understanding. But I felt prepared for the ending based on some things that happened earlier, and also, or things that had been said earlier. There's one line at the end that's like, okay, you didn't need to tell me that. Most of the ending I was like, very cool, I like that. But it does, kind of like Sasha Masha, it kind of introduces something that isn't resolved at the end, and you're like, why did you tell me that if you weren't going, like, why did you set that up or tell me about that if you weren't going to do something about it? Basically, I really like this book, even if some things were funky dunk, and I continue to look forward to more Yoon Ha-lee. There's a lesbian character, the main character is non-binary, there's some polyamory characters off on the side. I quite enjoyed all of the characters once I figured out what was going on with them. So those have been my Pride reads. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!